I haven't done a whole lot.
Happy New Year.
I got
To
moved
you,
over
everybody.
here. I got moved. This is where my new
Happy
spot.
New Year, how they say that, to all.
Is that a good spot?
Good morning. Yeah. Happy New Year.
Hear anything more regarding Happy New Year? I didn't see it. Yeah.
I am crazy, you're right. You're right, you didn't need.
I know that.
Yes.
Oh,
Since I'm not on the computer, do I sign in?
Oh, was that, I thought it was early in the morning, was that night?
Okay.
Yeah, 10:30.
yeah. Sure was trying to tease you because I was born.
Well, I didn't know that till yesterday either.
Oh, right.
Really happy, Jeff.
Anything was
My
on
papers
that?
as usual.
Hi.
Oh, that's right, you
Thank
did.
you, Jeff.
Not on the committee.
Still sitting on the side, right?
Absolutely, you can't
I
go.
think she has pancreatitis.
Right.
She's got a brain on it.
Table it.
If I'm not on the committee?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, any council person can go to any meeting.
Okay, so who's not going to be here? Yep.
John's not gonna be here, John Gowan's gonna be here.
Here's a John Galvin.
John, you just your left.
I don't know, this is my new spot, I was
Yeah, the road lawyers.
Yeah.
I want to sit over here and see if I can stop John from the side.
I got it. Yeah.
I thought she
Have
had
your
donuts.
box
I thought she had donuts here.
Yeah, you-
Donuts, just a box of paper donuts. That's
Just a box of checks.
Here, I get all excited just for a moment.
Donuts.
Oh, wow.
You can fight over it if you want.
Might be shady, John. Everything for what I understand.
Well,
moves.
that's a hurtful paper.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I guess they got
Do you know that?
crap going on.
He's gonna
If I
move.
start to have
The time that spot.
because I'm, you know, you can only breathe your own
You
business.
don't have to. I got it. Oh, come on, you don't need the whole thing. Melissa.
Oh.
Coaster.
I have to leave.
Towards board. Thank you.
I forgot everything. I looked at the agenda in the-
I may have to leave at any
Oh,
minute.
no, okay. A new sketch? No, there should be.
Oh, no, I don't.
I thought it was-
I don't know. I guess I do until, I guess I do it for about 2 more minutes.
Yeah, but,
Guess Steve doesn't.
well, yeah, you do that, so we can be organized.
For that 30
For
seconds.
the 30 seconds. The rest of the evening will be fire in line.
Steve,
Yeah.
Chris sent me a text that
Ugh.
Route 12 is a parking lot. He'll be a little late.
Said what?
Chris Hartman sent me a text that Route 12 is a parking lot. He'll be a little late.
Okay. I think we can start without it.
We have one.
Safe to say we're gonna have one word at every meeting the rest of our.
You would see who's here.
Yes.
Two, probably two.
Well, at least besides
At
that.
least one.
At least one. Bar association.
That's true.
All right, 8 o'clock. Call the meeting to order. Do roll call.
Keith Dirk,
Here.
Steve Brenner,
Here.
Tom Mull,
Here.
John Gallen,
Here.
Greg Portner.
Here.
Any public comment?
Can I say a couple of words, just in addition to what I said last time? It has to do with financial. I was looking, I did some more calculations, I don't have them with me. Based on what Councilman Woodward said, that the hourly rate for McCarthy was 127. So at about 475,000 a year that we spend on that in average, If you divide that by 127 and 40 hours a week, you get about 95 weeks, which is close to 2 FTEs, to two jobs. So back to my initial comment, this clearly justifies having an engineer on staff at least. And even if you had 2 jobs on staff, you would be a lot less than 500,000 a year spending on an engineer or 2 engineers or an engineer and a technician that would, do all this work. So it's to me, it's very simple. I think we're a lot better to create good jobs than, like I said before, pay a for-profit company. 500,000 is way more than 2 engineers would get paid, let alone an engineer and a CAD technician. So the other problem is that he said that the hourly rate got dropped to 100. That's just part of the equation, because McCarthy can bill another quarter of an hour more for a job, and nobody can say, hey, you did not spend 15 minutes extra on this, and he's back at the hourly rate. And I don't know, when I was working in this business, we had several levels checking the hourly rate. When you have somebody on time and material like this, it's not easy to determine. And I don't know who is qualified to tell an engineer, hey, you didn't spend 8 hours on this project, or there was no reason to spend 8 hours on this project. This was just a 2-hour job or a 3-hour job or a 6-hour job. So it's like I said, we had several levels of approval on how much time was spent by a contractor. And the fact that this is just an open bill, hourly rate, and we're not bidding, we're not asking for other bids on projects. It seems a lot to me. Anyway, that's all my comment. Thank you.
Thanks.
Sorry.
Any other public comment? I'm gonna make a public comment. Just to be clear for everybody in the group who hasn't been here, a large chunk of McCarthy's, or a good chunk of McCarthy's fee has been reimbursed to us by the state for projects that have been approved by the state, just so we know that it's passed through. So when you only look at the expense side, you get to the revenue.
There's also a large amount that is rebilled to the developer. So that McCarthy will build the borough, and the borough will turn around and build a respective developer for each of the projects.
So since we don't have the ability yet at this point to film our own meetings, I think that's good to make sure that we get that out there. So everybody here is comfortable who's new to the meeting. When you only look at the expense side of things, it shows a bad sign. When you show the income side of it, it's a little different story, but that's basic finance. I was making sure.
I'll add my public comment then, as far as that, continuing that long expense side. Someone, don't forget, you have to pay the benefits, and then they're gonna be on a pension system, which is very expensive after a period of time, so. It's a good, it's a good system, so all that stuff has to be factored in as well.
I'll make a public comment also in that to get a broad range of engineering services, to hire one person with all that broad knowledge, because if you go to an outside source, they may have engineers that are expertise in civil, engineering, and mechanical, so on and so forth.
And we had a borough engineer one time, who was on staff, and the borough decided at that particular time that they needed a full service engineering firm rather than one engineer whose expertise was only in civil engineering, nothing else, and the borough felt at the time that it was best if they go to an outside agency that was a full service operation, and that's when that stopped.
If I may, there was the implication that McCarthy Engineering is submitting fraudulent invoices.
It's not
Paying
an
the bill,
implication.
I find very objectionable.
It's
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, moving on. In my last act, we have to reorganize the committee. So I am gonna make the recommendation that we name Keith Durr the finance and admin chairperson.
Second.
We have a recommendation and a second. Any questions?
Is he willing?
Yeah.
He didn't.
I guess that was a question.
No choice.
That was not allowed. All right, so
The pay is a little better.
Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Go get him,
I just want, I want to make a public comment that I say that Steve did a great job as chair.
Here, here.
Time to serve
Since Steve did such a great job as chair, let's nominate Steve as the co-chair. What's it called?
Vice chair.
Vice chair.
I'll
Vice chair.
second that.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Do we need to amend the agenda if we move something around in the agenda?
No, one is on the agenda.
I'd like to move number 12 up so John, the chief, can go and protect and serve the community while missing.
I was notified by Michelle yesterday, I guess it was, that PennDOT is requesting from the police assistance with traffic control when they start their project up on the highway. This is between State Hill and Avenue, is that correct?
Yes.
I asked Michelle if that was something that council would want us to do. Because as I recall, we did this when they worked on the bridge in that area. And then when it came time for, when they did it over Penn Avenue, at that time Jeff Beal told us that council didn't want us to do it, because it affected pensions and things like that. So I'm wondering, is that something that you want us to get involved in? Like, I believe it starts in April?
April through roughly November, the rate that I threw out to the consultant that contacted me on behalf of PennDOT was $150 an hour, with the possibility of additional requests for fuel and maintenance of the vehicles, and to assume all the hours would be overtime hours.
The reason that was done was because of the pensions and the amount of overtime that several guys.
They use if they don't have us.
Flagger force.
State police, but it sounds like the state police are reluctant themselves to do it.
That's
So there's, yeah, there's flight or force or
I think
traffic
that's what they're
control.
gonna have to
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
Flagger force.
So you're not in favor of that?
Well, I'm not, it's not that I'm not in favor of it, I just don't wanna start putting things together. I wasn't in a position to know the in, I was just told what Jeff said. So I wanna make sure that if it's something that council doesn't want to do.
Well, but if you pull people and you're sitting by the road as, what does that do to your force, and how does that, what does that do to my missing borough? I mean,
They would all have, as Michelle said, they would all have to be on overtime, so it's not gonna affect the daily
You can pay other people overtime to make up for those guys that are
Right,
missing.
people that are off will be being paid overtime
Right.
at their time and a half rate. So, that's how we did it, we did it over
Okay.
State Hill.
Tell the state if they give us 10% over what the costs are, we'll do it.
And paint Park Road Bridge immediately.
So what's the committee's feel?
I'd say no at this point. I mean,
Somebody want to make a motion to?
so moved. I'll make the
Deny
motion.
the-
At this point, we deny doing the stuff.
We have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Alright, so I guess we can tell, you want to email them?
I told them I'd be in touch with them later today.
Do you have anything else, Chief?
Nope, that was it. Have a good meeting. Take care.
Okay, Phyllis, you're up.
Alright. Cash update. At the end of December, cash and investments totaled $9,993,000. That is a decrease from the end of November of $568,000, which is anticipated during this time of the year we will see continued decline. It is, however, $1,384,000 more than we were at the same time last year. There is no pending activity to add to that amount, as the final reimbursement was received from DCED. So there is no adjustment to that, so the total balance is $9,993,000. Of concern will be the two certificates of deposit, both the 6-month certificate as well as the 12-month certificate will be maturing on February 5th. It's too early to get rates at this time, but it's unlikely that they will roll at the rates that we currently have. So I will keep you informed as to what's available
We'll
there.
look at those juicy rates again.
Point one.
0.2 and 0.4.
0.2 and 0.45. We go on to look at
Right.
December activity.
Or the 1%.
Transactions of note for the month of December does include the final distribution from DCED on the 4th Street Extension Project in the amount of $200,000. Invoicing also went out for the 50/50 sidewalk program that totaled $34,000. Payments were made for the 4th quarter MMO. The leaf vac arrived and was paid for $82,000. Once that check clears, we will be submitting for grant reimbursement. About 90% of that will be reimbursable from DEP. Payment applications totaling $62,000 were made during the month of December. When we compare December revenues this year to last year, you'll see a negative variance. That's attributed to several grants that were received in December of 2020. During December of 2020, we had received the CARES grant reimbursement. We received the ALLY grant reimbursement from work that had been done in prior years. And we also received the first distribution from DCED. So that's the primary reason for the variance compared to last year. On a year-to-date basis, our revenues totaled $22,022,000. So a positive variance for the year of $3,555,000. When we compare expenses for December of this year versus last year, you can see they're very comparable at $1,724,000. Both Decembers included 3 payroll cycles as well as the pension payments. When we look at year-to-date totals, expenses, we will end the year at $20,501,000, a variance over the prior year of $3,214,000 because there were capital projects that were expended during '21 that did not occur in '20. On a net basis for the month of December, we had a small loss of $24,000, which brings the year-to-date net to $1,521,000. When that amount is added to fund balance, we started the year with $9,499,000, with revenues exceeding expenses by $1,521,000. We will end the year with overall fund balance of $11,020,000. 857 of that has been designated as reserved for future projects. There is no pending activity, as I indicated. Already included in fund balance are receivables totaling $959,000. The 4th quarter utility billing was mailed just at the end of December.
Well, it's just for edification, what was the budget?
Oh, that's the next slide.
Okay. I'm sorry.
Just to review the reserves at the end of the year, we still have $150,000 that was originally designated for Borough Hall renovations, has been redesignated for the pole barn. We will end the year with total MS4 reserves totaling $320,000. Maintenance, future maintenance for the bike route, we have $48,000 in reserve. We have $23,000 reserved for future maintenance of the police mobile camera units. And we have $315,000 reserved from capital projects that did not occur in 2021 that will likely occur in 2022. All right. So to compare results to the budget, we had originally budgeted for 2021 a deficit of $1,476,000. When budgeting in October and November, I had projected an excess of revenue over expenses of $1,132,000. If we end the year with $1,521,000, that is $388 more than we anticipated when we were budgeting, and a variance over budget of $2,997,000. Big numbers, but easily explained. If we look at the variance in our local taxes, we have a variance of over $1 million in local taxes. We have 1.4 million of capital projects that did not occur, and we received the American Recovery Plan funds of $556,000. So those variances alone account for over $3 million.
And the local taxes are primarily transfer taxes?
They are, and I have detail for each one of those.
Yeah, that's right.
Janet, just for your,
Here's a goal for this year, let's do the same thing.
tough because this is how it goes to
So it would be funny if we were trying to be on the surface, but still do it.
This is a goal.
500 homes a month get sold.
Yeah,
So to answer Greg's question, if we end the year with a fund balance of 11 million, we had anticipated to end the year with only 8 million. So that's that $3 million swing. If we add or subtract, actually, the deficit that is planned for 2022 of $2,464,000, we potentially would end the year of 2022 with overall fund balance of $8,556,000.
which is pretty much where we thought we would end 19, or
Yeah.
20. We thought we'd end 20,
Two years down, 3 years down. the road.
but got a lot of stuff done.
Sure.
With future reserves planned of approximately $958,000, we could end the year with an unreserved fund balance of $7,597,000. Keep in mind, the deficit that is planned for the current year, we are already aware of 2 projects that we did not receive funding for. So the budget was approved with capital, sorry, the mouse is a little sensitive today. The budget was approved with capital projects totaling $5,916,000 with anticipated funding of $1,689,000. We are already aware that awards were not made for the Stonehouse plans, nor the Lincoln Avenue lining, excuse me.
While she takes a sip of tea, I'm gonna add Dan, Macrina, Dwayne Hammond, who's the parks foreman, and I have a meeting, excuse me, with Jim McCarthy next week. The $150,000 for the pole barn to replace the parks barn does not include any type of site work, ENS prep, mechanical, plumbing, heating, so there's likely going to be a future request to shift some of those now unused funds from the Stonehouse that were budgeted over to the pole barn project.
Are there other projects on here that, when we did the budgeting, we decided if we don't get the funding, we're not gonna do them? Other than the ones we already know we're not gonna get the funding for? Was there anything else on here that we said is only gonna be done if we get funding?
Can you flip back to the other page? I don't believe so.
I didn't remember if any of these other ones were pending funding or not.
Main replacement, that wasn't dependent, nothing else on there is dependent on funding besides the Wyomissing Hills Memorial, and that funding commitment's already been made.
Right. Okay.
So to recap, the projects that we are aware we do not have funding for, the approved budget includes $1,078,000 in expenses of projects that most likely will not occur. It includes $750,000 in revenue of grants that we had anticipated and we know we're not going to receive. The net is a change of $328,000 that is in the budget that we know at this time will not occur.
Are we
able to resubmit
Yes, and we are.
applications?
I have a call with Colleen and Kathy scheduled for next Monday afternoon to kind of re-strategize for the Brandywine Lincoln, the Stonehouse, and then because we've now finally gotten approval from PennDOT to shift the funding for Fourth Street, which is now done, over to the pedestrian bridge and Cambridge Culvert, just finalizing the documentation and how we move forward with that.
Thank you.
A recap of real estate taxes collected. The tax collector reports collections during the month of December of $39,000. That would bring the year-to-date collections to $4,523,000 and leave an outstanding balance at the end of the year of $66,915. Those numbers are not final. The collector is obligated to accept all postmarked mail through Friday the 31st, and mail is still trickling in. Should not change significantly, but those are the results. The amount collected by the tax collector was not received by the borough during the month of December. One check was received on Monday, so it's a 22 receipt. Any additional taxes she receives will also be a January receipt. So for the month of December, the only real estate taxes received by the borough were delinquent taxes that were paid from the county, totaling $658, bringing the year-to-date total for net real estate taxes to $4,526,000. That is $51,000 more than budgeted. Next year, or current year, 2022, the budget for net real estate taxes is $4,615,000, or $88,000 more than our actual collections during 2021.
So Phyllis, you're actually cash basis though.
We are a cash
So you're gonna
basis.
receive that, when you get the money, you'll receive that as revenue in January. that
Correct.
32,000. So,
Yes,
all right, so you're kind of off to the races, I mean, that,
but we are every year.
okay.
The 2021 receipts include taxes that were collected for December of 2020. So there's always a lag
Sure.
there at the end of the year. And people do wait to the 31st to
Sure.
postmark their checks. And so there are additional payments to process.
Yeah, all right.
Phyllis, can we just go back 1 second, back to capital projects?
Sure.
Can you keep this as part of the permanent, every month, this recap?
Sure.
I think this is gonna be helpful as we continue to add things that we are gonna do, that we aren't gonna do, and it kind of gives us an indication of where we are with, like the 300, like Steve said, the 328,000, we know we have a little bit of room in capital projects if we need to shift something over to pull, but it gives us a running net balance of where we are. So I think that's a great sheet to have in there.
So we looked at gross taxes, we looked at net taxes, we look at all other local taxes other than real estate. Here we go. During the month of December, collections totaled $620,000, bringing the year-to-date total to $5,790,000. That is a full $1,090,000 more than budgeted. Of course, that includes the Equus transfer, which will not reoccur in 2022. So the budget for overall taxes for 2022 is slightly less than the 2021 results. Go on to look at each one of the major taxes. Real estate transfer tax, in the month of December, $81,000 was received, bringing the total to $979,000, which is $579,000 more than the $400,000 that had been budgeted. The budget for 2022 is $600,000. So excluding that unusual transaction for Equus, we are still counting on some commercial transfers. I've already been notified of the receipt for January, which were transactions from December. Already been informed of 2 commercial properties that have changed hands. area on Penn Avenue from 1001 through 1015, transferred, and that tax receipt will be 16,000. Also, 2210 Ridgewood, which is one of the office complexes, that transferred, and that tax receipt during the month of January will be 8,500.
How much?
So 8,500. So we are off to a good start. For the month of January, the receipts will be 60,000.
Of the 600,000, how much, just rough, how much do you think you anticipated for commercial?
Maybe about 200,000.
200.
Usual residential is about 400,000.
Okay.
So any commercial properties that change will be in addition to that, and will take us from the 4 to the 6.
Do we have any other real big ones that we thinking are?
Commercial, Sly Fox is under contract to buy theirs, assuming we get anywhere with Wilson School District. Stephen Minnick's property on North Park Road.
And interest with you.
Hopefully.
Yeah, Jeff Henninger just sold Viva, that's
For
right.
$5.
Right.
You're not gonna get much out of that.
So the real estate transfer tax budget for the current year does look reasonable.
Yeah, good.
For earned income tax, during the month of December, 453,000 was received, bringing the total to 3,095,000. 495,000 more than the 2.6 million that had been budgeted. When I projected it in October, I projected a year end of 3,150,000, and we did fall short of that. The December receipt, when compared to 2020, was disappointing. And there is no way to predict those numbers. That is a result of individuals' compensation.
You're
Yeah,
in
we're as many
you're-
bonuses this year as last year,
Yeah.
probably.
Right,
What
those
year
guys
was
aren't here
Yeah,
anymore.
yeah.
Phil, what year was it? I'm starting to run together now. What year was it that someone got a gigantic, we thought that someone got a
I didn't get
gigantic?
my bonus- I
That
didn't
was
get my bonus in time this
2018.
year.
Oh my God, okay, scratch that.
What was that, Steve?
We had one year where somebody got a giant.
There was a bank executive that had
Chris
retired.
Massey's here anymore.
Yeah.
Well, they told me I'd get mine in January, so
Oh,
I
okay.
didn't get mine. This December, so.
The budget for 2022 is 3,250,000, and that is actually very aggressive compared to the total receipts for 21, so I frankly am a little nervous about that one, but time will tell. When we look at mercantile tax, the grand total of receipts during the month of December was $387 from Wilson. We learned on December 30th that the EIT Bureau is once again changing their distribution schedule. Up to this time, the receipts for the current month were received at the end of each month. So they did a cutoff towards the end of December and would remit to the borough in December. With their new system, those receipts are going to be deferred. It will be a full month receipt and will be deferred to the following month. So with just $300 from Wilson, we ended the year at $682,000, $38,000 less than the $900,000 that had been budgeted. That's reflective of the decline in the retail district, around the mall in Berkshire Heights. The WIO total, even without the December distribution, totaled $281,000. That was a full $57,000 more than the $225,000 that had been budgeted, and that reflects the results of the redevelopment in the Wawa and Knitting Mills area. So on a combined basis, we ended the year with $1,144,000. 19,000 more than the 1,150,000 that had been budgeted. The budget for 2022 is 1,175,000. I plan for a further decline in the Berkshire Heights retail district, so that budget is now 150,000. The budget for Wyomissing is 325,000. Compared to 281 in receipts for 2021. So that is fairly aggressive, but I think still reasonable. Lastly is the local services tax. For the month of December, receipts totaled $85,000, bringing the year-to-date total to $571,000. When we budgeted, I had projected that we would end the year equal to budget. So both variances are $3,000 less than anticipated. The budget for 2022 is $600,000. When you compare the $600,000 to total receipts of $571, that might be a little aggressive too. So again, time will tell. That would be reflective of the number of individuals that are employed. Alright, if we go on to look at the capital projects, this is the last time you'll see the 4th Street recap. During the month of December, we did receive the final reimbursement totaling $200,000. So I put a little recap here on the bottom. The total, these are direct costs. The total construction costs per the contract were $1,826,000. Total engineering fees, $405,000. That engineering total goes back to the conception of the project in 2019. Reimbursements received against those direct costs, total grant reimbursement from DCED totaled $2 million. $200,000 was reimbursed by Equus, bringing the total reimbursement to $2.2 million, and the net cost to the borough of direct costs for the 4th Street Extension project would therefore be $31,000.
Wow.
Very good.
That's good.
That's good job, Michelle. Little funding
That's
there.
real good work.
Wasn't just me. I'd like to give John Woodward, the
Sure.
Economic Development Committee, there's a lot of people that deserve credit for that. But I'd also like to point out that $200,000 Equus reimbursement was specifically for engineering costs.
Now, there were indirect costs related to the project. We did have fees for grant writing, for lobbying, and of course, a ton of Michelle's staff time.
Yeah, well,
And yours, especially on the reimbursement part.
and what that does for that infrastructure over there is unbelievable and only gives us a bigger chance to grow. So I think that is as big of a win as this borough's had in a long time.
What do we pay the lobby? Like 50-some thousand?
Total for both of them years, $84,000.
84, I mean, well worth.
Well, and not just focused on 4th Street, but obviously
Right.
beneficial for
Sure.
other
We
projects.
just got $1 million for another project, so.
Right.
All right, for the 2021 street projects, in the month of December, final payment was made in the amount of $17,000. On the sidewalk project during the month of December, a payment was made on application number 3 in the amount of $23,903. The retainer, I thought would be paid during the 2021 year, but will fall into 2022. Infrastructure approved it on December 20th. It is pending council approval next week. Same situation with the 2021 sewer project. During the month of December, payment was made on application number 3 in the amount of $21,000. The infrastructure committee approved on December 20th the payment of the retainer. It is pending council approval next week. And finally, total capital expenditures for the year. In addition to the payment acts that were made, there were additional costs incurred for the installation of the police cameras and engineering on the 4th Street project, bringing total December capital expenditures to $66,000, and the total year capital expenditures, $3,086,000, a full $1.4 million less than had been approved in the original budget. That's all I have for 2021. These are, the $29,000 is the total retainage that fell from 21 into 2020. The audit is scheduled for the second week of February. I report these numbers as preliminary. They're subject to audit, of course, which seldom results in any adjustments.
Phyllis, for all the year-to-date comparisons. We kind of added 19 because we thought 20 was an anomaly, so we could compare to 19. What's your plan for
Well,
going forward?
I do have a little room out here that I could get a fourth year in. I hate to make 20 the
Well, yeah, I don't want to
base.
use 20. I mean, I think we either stay with 4 or we go just to 21 and 22.
I think mercantile tax, I'm gonna condense that and just show totals. And then I think I'll have room to show 4 years.
Yeah, the ones you have 4 years, let's do that, so we
Okay.
have a comparison
Alright.
across
Yeah, I
4
think
years of
For
comparison.
19 and 20 for mercantile tax, I'll just show the totals and I can get rid of all those columns.
Okay.
For 21, I'll show the individual Wilson YO, and then I'll have room for 22.
And everybody in the committee okay with that? Showing it that way in comparisons?
Okay? All right, any questions on the financial results?
Good results, good work, good job to everybody.
Okay.
Well, beat the bushes for some more of that, transfer tax, more of that, mercantile tax, that's good, you
Yeah.
know.
That's a sign of the economic development, which is
Yeah.
an applaud to everybody sitting around here, that's not an elected official.
Anyone else have anything for Phyllis? Thank you, Phyllis. Text my gov.
So you may recall, I presented information on this program at the December finance meeting. I can go back and give you an overview on how the software program works if you want me to. There was a decision at that time to kind of hold off on making any recommendation or approval to move forward with implementing the software program because of new council coming on board. At the same time, I went back to, can I steal this for a second? I went back to the company that provided the quote to us and asked if they could reduce, there's normally a $2,000 implementation setup fee, and I asked if they could work with that number at all, and they came back and cut it by 50%. So the total first year out of pocket would be $6,000, and then it would be $5,000 annually moving forward. And again, this, a brief synopsis is somebody from the public that, resident or non-resident can send us a text. The app auto-populates a response based off of information we feed into the back end of that software program. Thank you. And this is an example of what it looks like. So you send a text, it asks you what type of issue are you reporting, the location, the name. You can upload a picture. In this case, we did an example that it links to the website where you can download a dumpster permit. And if for some reason after going through all the prompts and back-end answers, the software program is not able to resolve the issue, it captures the message, and then we get a daily log on the back end that we can go in and go back to contact the person.
How long is the contract if you start this?
I'd have to look through it, but I believe it's on an annual basis.
So you can stop it?
Yeah, we're not locked into any longer.
Is there any fear that somebody's gonna text this and say my house is on fire?
I mean, we could include in this auto message, please contact 911 to report an emergency, like,
I just, in
It's
this,
just calling a doctor's
in this
office.
day and age
You
of
should have
technology,
said somebody, yeah.
yeah, nobody can, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's like calling a doctor's office, you gotta put on there something saying, if this is the true medical emergency, hang up and dial 911.
Right.
First thing they say.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, yeah, there's gonna be a little tweaking around the system as people start using it, and didn't think about that one, but the bare bones, they've done this in multiple municipalities in Pennsylvania. In fact, they gave me references to check, which I did. Those municipalities are very happy with the service, and they're a nationwide company. So I'm sure they can also
So it's
give us some
$6,000.
pointers. First year.
First year. Listen, my opinion on it is if the administration is willing to take this on, if we think there's a coordinated savings. My issue would be if you have a habitual, there's a leaf laying on the sidewalk person. But I guess we don't have to really respond to that, right? I mean, what would happen if someone said there's a leaf laying on my sidewalk and it was my neighbor's leaf? God forbid.
Yeah, I mean, that person's gonna call anyways, but there's no ordinance that says leaves have to be raked, collected, removed. It's not an issue.
So it would fall into the, I'm using my lack of technology, who gives a crap part of the MyGov, text MyGov.
Thank you for reporting your concerns. Unfortunately, that's not an
Got it.
issue.
That's a better way to put it.
Yes.
But my only concern is that you're gonna get people that they're not gonna take the initiative to pick up the telephone, but it's so easy to sit at home on the sofa and start texting. I think you're gonna get, I think you're gonna get inundated. I think you're gonna have a very small population of the community that's gonna totally abuse this thing. But
Who would oversee this?
Lisa would be the main, I mean, the idea is myself, Kim, Melissa, and Lisa are all gonna be trained on it, but Lisa's getting all of these phone calls now. So the idea is Lisa would be the person pulling the daily log to confirm what has not been responded, or what could the system take a person to a certain point and now we need to physically reach out to that person.
I just think you're gonna get more, people are not gonna take the initiative to pick up the phone and call, but if they can sit with nothing else to do, they can text. So, I guess what we have to do is the committee needs to either make a recommendation or pass it on to council to let them think, I mean, it's gonna be a decision. So does the committee have an opinion as to whether to make a recommendation to council to approve, deny, or table, or let council have a discussion about it?
Well, I think it's been generally, the principle's been over the years that if it's a fiscal matter, we make the motion, or we make the recommendation to council,
Right.
that we approve or reject it before it even gets there, so I guess that's on our laps at this point. Most times, if you're spending money,
I would say, I would make the recommendation that we would approve the expenditure as to whether the practicality of the program is acceptable to council. I think
on
council
further
should-
study or further research or something, or
I do think the practicality part of it falls into this committee also on the admin side.
Yeah, that's true.
I think one of the things we don't wanna lose sight of is Wyomissing has always had somebody pick up the phone. Not electronically, or where you have to go through a litany to get to somebody, only to find out that you gotta return the call or send them a text message or whatever. I still think that that's something that,
Is that contemplated to go away?
This is something at some point I was gonna talk about with both administration and personnel. Part of my org chart long-term plan is potentially reducing the hours Borough Hall is open to the public in terms of Monday, Wednesday, 7:30 to noon, Tuesday, Thursday, 12 to 4:30, Friday 10 to 2, because frankly, we don't have the foot traffic in here, and we have not for a long time to justify someone sitting at that front desk 24/7. Plus, with the new VoIP phone system, nobody actually has to be sitting at that desk to answer the phone. Lisa could be at home in a snowstorm and someone dials the Borough Hall number, and she can still answer it. Same for any of us. That phone system allows you to put the app on your cell phone or your desktop that you can answer your desk phone from anywhere in the world as long as you have an internet connection.
That sounds like another agenda, at some other point.
yeah.
Yes, in
So
at a
what's the
future
committee's
date.
feeling about text my gov?
Yeah, it's a 2-year contract.
I would think the majority of the complaints, from hearing from what Lisa said, is going to be, trash pickup, they missed me,
Trash leaks, no.
and I would think that would be the majority. And I know she gets a lot of really nasty phone calls about that,
Will also be a
that she
problem
doesn't have to put up with.
with leaf collection in the fall. Then Lee's been sitting there when he comes by, just little nuisance things like that, that people would be texting.
Some of this also ties into the next item on the agenda, which is marketing and community relations. I heard loud and clear that during the election, there was a lot of comments made about people wanting better access to the borough or easier access to the borough. I mean, Text My Gov is not something staff is sitting here like, yes, can we please have this? But it's a resource that falls into that next category of how engaged and what different types of engagement do you want the community to be able to have with borough staff?
Does anyone want to make a motion to either table, deny, or approve to council this text my gov program?
I will make a motion that we approve it.
We have a
On a 2-year, obviously on the 2-year trial basis, if it's abused and or, well, we can discuss that later.
We have a motion and a second to recommend to council that this project be approved. Any discussion?
The only thing I would say about that is I think there should be reports
Mhm.
on how it's going to come in, not maybe to this committee, but perhaps the council or whatever their
Yep.
body should be, you know, infrastructure, whatever it is.
I would actually say here is administration,
Yeah.
sorry.
So there's a,
Unless we separate them. you know.
yeah, so we should monitor.
I should follow that wherever it goes, I guess.
So most of the project would be approved, recommend to council to approve with the condition that a report be established on a monthly basis and reported back to administration.
Right.
All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it, so ordered.
Just on that report, you're talking about maybe a statistical table,
Well, just
like we get on police
updates, how's it
calls.
going, you know what I mean, how many texts we receive,
Yeah.
you know,
How many
types
of
of
them
texts.
were, how many of them were trash related, how many of them were?
Right, I guess,
you know.
so, yeah, something like that, Chris, I would think, you know.
We also want to know whether the number of phone calls has gone down.
As much information as we can get, I think.
Yeah, let's get the information we can out of it, we
And that can be
we can massage that
established.
as we go during.
Yeah,
as
we can, yeah.
As we get used to it, we can massage it the way we want to use it. But I do think we need to advertise it, so the next communication we send out, it should be prominent that they can do this.
But also what it's intended
Yeah,
to be
intended
used for, as opposed to just a blanket new way of communicating with the borough.
I
Should be
agree,
restricted.
it should be,
You know,
there should be
it's-
something
that
fixed.
absolutely shouldn't be used for emergencies.
Right.
If you have issues that need immediate address, don't use this, you know, something like that.
Melissa and I can work on some language for the website, but my thought is maybe in the first or second, I don't know what time the first quarter, but maybe the second quarter utility billing,
Yes.
we could put something on the utility bill, just a quick blurb, check out borough website for information on Text My Gov program.
So the fourth quarter of the Hills goes out at the end of this month, and then the
Too soon.
first quarter of Borough would be at the end of March.
That.
So we can definitely do the end of the Borough in March, because I can add it to the bill, where it'll say, you know,
At some
you
point, we
can-
put a
I
quarterly,
would say
a quarterly
anything
thing
that goes
out.
out of this borough is, you know, is mailed out, it should have that information.
We could probably get it in the newsletter by that time frame too.
Talking trash, all that kind of stuff.
The problem is, people don't read those things, like, we have no problem sending them out, and,
Yeah.
I mean, this again kind of moves into the next
But
subject.
our job is to engage the community and give them opportunities to be
Yeah.
engaged.
Yep,
If we, the proverbial, lead the horse to water, you can't force it to drink,
yep.
so be it.
Marketing and community relations.
So again, I heard loud and clear during election and, you know, comments made by various candidates that there's the need to be more engaged with the community. Nobody ever provided specifics on what they thought that should look like. So, you know, open discussion as to what is this committee and or council think of our current community relations and what would they like to see done differently?
Are you, does this mean from council or from the borough officials? I mean, what,
From the borough.
What type of-
borough?
what's that?
The
I
borough
think
in
it's
general.
really the borough issues, not
Yeah, yeah.
necessarily
So I mean, it's not like
the elected
council has
officials.
to have like a town hall or something, I mean, it's, you know,
No,
you're already having the town and gown things.
this is how to
But
get,
that's not a public thing, you know what I mean?
no, correct, this is how to get, you know, general borough information, a lot of which already lives on the website, out to the community in a different format.
Just getting information out there.
Look, I looked at our website, I was bored over Christmas, and looked at our website versus West Reading's website versus Spring's website versus name them. Are we the best? Oh, we're pretty darn close to the best though.
Melissa and I actually have talked about the platform through, she's researched a few, more than a few, other municipality websites. And there is, a desire by her and I to maybe look at switching to a different company with a easier layout and easier format. So we're more than happy to start working on that
Yeah,
process.
the usability of the website isn't, I wouldn't say is very easy, but compared to other places, I still think it's better than most.
And compared to what we had when we were hosted by the county,
Right.
yeah.
Who hosts our website now?
It's Designer, which is a borough resident-owned marketing company. The company's not based in the borough, but the owners are.
To pay the bill to Bluehost.
Bluehost.
The November issue of Pennsylvania Boroughs Magazine, if anyone still has that, they devoted their whole issue to municipal marketing. And a lot of very good points in that article, a lot of which we share already, you know, in what we're doing with ours. But, you know, we still have a copy of that floating around, you know. If not, I can bring mine in. That would be
I have them all saved.
All right.
great. That's a great, really some wonderful information on marketing.
Just in order to keep the meeting moving, I think we should continue to look at our website to see how we can improve it. I think the text-by-gov that we just approved to send to council is a huge step in public communication and gives the community the ability to communicate with the borough. Let's just keep moving. I mean,
So
we're gonna try to improve the website the best we can, but I don't know that we're gonna make a full-blown project out of it. That's just my opinion. I think we improve it as we can. If we need to get a new host for the website, so be it. But move forward as you can.
So this is probably not an actionable item, it probably is something that's just ongoing discussion.
But when it comes to the community relations, the text by gov is a step in the right direction.
Correct, and I mean, just to clarify, Melissa and I are pulling on the trigger. I signed the contract yesterday for Scantech, I signed the contract yesterday for Logitech, which is the equipment in here. The iPad should be arriving in about 2 weeks. So we kind of have a lot on our plate coming up in the next month or so to get in place and get out. So looking into other website companies may be on the back burner until spring, but we will
As
get
Tom
there.
Boucher would say, progress,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Another thing we talked about over the months was publications or articles about success in the borough that could be seeded in trade publications for, maybe the development industry or real estate industry. Have we done that?
I owe Bill an article on, you had asked me to write an article, so to speak, on the knitting mills and how that kind of then spurred into DUCOM and everything that came along with that, so maybe when I'm sitting on my 13-hour flight next week, I can start writing
You
that.
start working on that.
Because I know you have presentations you've done.
Yeah,
They could easily be converted into another media to, be published.
Any other discussion about marketing and community relations? Okay, number 9, removing administration from finance committee responsibilities.
Again, I think this committee had a pretty good discussion on this last month, but decided not to take any action on it because of the change in council. There was a question raised as to whether or not the administration portion should be removed from here and perhaps be sent to personnel or keep it the way that it is, and there can be duplication of certain things this committee wants personnel to also discuss.
I'm gonna make the recommendation, we keep it as is, and it gives us a little more flexibility that we have admin and personnel meetings different times of the month. If something needs to be acted on, we have 2 opportunities to do that as opposed to calling another meeting.
So at this point, we just, there's a motion to just table the whole thing, and we don't recommend to council.
That's my recommendation.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So happy. Thank you. We're not, this committee's not recommending council to do anything different.
Drug and alcohol policy, in reviewing what our current drug and alcohol policy is in the employee handbook, it's very vague. It talks about reasonable suspicion or investigative procedures, but it never spells out what either of those things are. So there's a lot of gray area that when I discussed this with Chris, I was concerned about being able to implement that if, you know, there was any reasonable suspicion an employee reported to work under the influence of drugs or alcohol. Chris's office, prepared a revised draft that I also sent over to Loomis to take a review and, you know, provide feedback, which they did last night around 7:00. My comment to Chris when I forwarded Loomis's comments to him was, I think all of their comments but one do not change the intent to the extent that this committee couldn't potentially make a recommendation to council to adopt the policy. But there was one comment at the very end as to when a drug screen is required, and different things Loomis was suggesting we put in the policy as to, you know, after an accident or after et cetera. And I wanna take the time to sit down with department heads and actually review all of the potential causes that may trigger drug screening before we move forward with this. And I don't wanna rush that process between now and council next week. So my thought is, give me a chance to take that policy back to the department heads. Chris and I can tweak it a little bit and then we'll bring it back next month. And in the meantime, even if we adopted this now, part of the policy is that any supervisor using the reasonable suspicion checklist that's part of the policy has to have at least 60 minutes of training in suspecting drug abuse or alcohol abuse. So that training wouldn't happen immediately anyway. So we have time to kind of get both things together. And I talked to Chief Phillips yesterday. Kevin Quinter, Kevin Quinter is obviously well versed and certified in identifying all of these things. So the thought is we could just do an in-house training session with Kevin teaching.
Yeah, I'd rather work out the bugs of the policy before we implement it, rather than
Yeah.
the first time we have an issue.
Yeah.
So, I think being deliberate about the process is a good idea.
My only comment to that is, and again, I'm in full agreement that we can tighten it up, the better off we are, but make sure it's nothing contractual with the different unions and all that other good stuff. Because who knows, I don't know that contract off the top of my head, if there's anything in there about, I'm sure there's something. that obviously we
There's
can do
actually
as well.
nothing in the actual contract about drugs and alcohol. It kicks it all back to the employee handbook, which certain unions did not sign. But I don't think, as the employer, that still negates our responsibility if there's any type of incident or suspicion that someone reports to work under the influence due to the safety of our residents and other employees, to follow through with.
Why didn't they sign?
Can't speak for them because that was a few years ago. I was not involved. I just know, I think two of them actually.
Yeah, they decided they just didn't.
I forgot what the reason was.
Well, they just decided that they just weren't gonna do it. They decided that was a violation of their rights.
Are you okay with that, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, we presented it to them. I think there are notes in the file that indicate that they received them, they received the policies, they were explained to them. So I don't think they're signing off on them would add anything to it. But I will look at the contracts and
'Cause I'd be good
think
with-
about your question. I mean, my reaction to your question, Steve, is that I think these are management rights to enforce really safety in the work.
I figured there's gotta be, I mean, you're leaning towards
Well, I
open the public.
Well, I see this as a safety in the workplace
Sure.
policy, so I think it is something that the management has a right to enforce, but,
Right.
you know, I'll just confirm that we're good on that.
So we're just keeping it moving along, not doing it at this
Just-
point.
Yeah, table action, but leave on the agenda for next month.
iPad policy,
So the iPad policy was approved by council at their December meeting. At a meeting earlier this week with the new council members, one new council member expressed interest in having information.
Not me.
Information printed out for him, for meetings and for council. You know, I informed him the intent of moving forward with the iPads was that we were gonna get away from that council packets hadn't been printed for council in close to 2 years. The idea was to save staff time, copier and ink time. he repeatedly requested a printed packet and documents moving forward and said, you know, it's not fair to him to be expected to review all of these documents on an 8.5 or 10-inch screen. I said since this was formal action by council, I did not feel comfortable making an executive decision to go around the policy, hence I'm bringing it here.
I would tend to agree that it's hard to look at it on the iPad, which is why we're gonna continue to send it out on the computer, right?
Well, I mean,
That's
it's
where I
gonna
look
be,
at it,
it's gonna be
Because then I can
sent,
look at my big screen.
it's going to be sent out to you via email.
Right.
And with a SharePoint link, once the iPads are set up, you can open that email and SharePoint link from any electronic device, whether it's your phone, an iPad, or a 25-inch computer monitor.
My feeling is the same. The whole idea of doing this was to get away from Melissa having to do multiple packets and printing out, destroying 10 trees to send out council packets. I think
And if we can get some kind of, I don't know, 30-minute
Yes, I'm gonna set up training.
training that someone, because there's ways to go onto your iPad and make notes.
Yeah, you can do like the bubble text.
Yeah, so, I mean, there's ways to do that stuff. The reality of it is, I think the importance of this is it now gives me we have its borough-owned property, you can put everything in the different files, you can access files. 5 years from now, they'll be able to get on the iPad and look at the file from this meeting today. So, and if you wanna print it, go ahead and print it. I only printed it because I get my emails to my work, and if I try to transfer it to my personal, it's too big. So I just print it out. But, you know, once it's to the same email address that I'll be here in front of my computer, I'll be good. So, and the fact that, was there a comment about a phone also?
There was a comment about separating personal and borough, which I respect. I have this phone and I have a personal cell phone, and the two shall never intertwine. But my point was, we do issue you a borough email address. It's your choice how you wanna access the information. No borough council member has ever been issued a cell phone to the best of my knowledge. The follow-up comment was, then is that person expected to carry an iPad around with them if that's the way to access the borough email address? And yes.
I don't think the job of borough council is to be doing the day-to-day things anyway, so to react on a minute notice would be a simple phone call for something real important. But the majority of our, 99.9% of our stuff isn't stuff you have to react to today. It's not like we're on the bat phone saying there's a problem in Metropolis, right? I mean,
I'm not
that's what you
carrying two
folks are
cell
being paid
phones.
for. Yeah.
Plain and simple.
I say we keep moving forward with the iPad policy.
Any other discussion?
Do you wanna make a formal recommendation to,
I would recommend that.
I'll make the recommendation to council to continue with the formal iPad policy that we had proposed in the past.
Which includes not printing of the council packets. Second? Second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. So I guess we're just recommending to council.
So we'll have a discussion with him
Tuesday night?
Tuesday night.
Yep.
Long as the correct one, I'm sure.
We did PennDOT.
Yep.
Any other old business? Any other new business? We have a, do we have a motion to adjourn? Second?
Sorry, it's a little excited. Yeah. Still get those donuts you wanted an hour ago.
We had a guy.
Did you email anyone?
Let me,
Used to
like,
drink whiskey.
Oh.
You'll come up.
One day he's driving down the boulevard, and he was on the brakes